A prenuptial agreement is a document that a couple will enter into in order to regulate their financial affairs in the event of a divorce. When a couple split up, the starting point is 50-50 on their assets. The key point is starting point. There's many things that could say it's not 50-50. But because of that 50-50 benchmark, a prenuptial agreement allows you to persuade the court to move away from that 50-50. But what sometimes happens is that a couple comes to the relationship and they've already got a house, perhaps they've already been divorced. They might want to preserve that asset. So what happens is that that couple would enter into a prenuptial agreement in order to protect that person's enhanced contribution, if that makes sense. That's why the prenup is in place, because it's showing evidence of what the parties agreed at the time the relationship broke down. The first step, we've got to make sure that this document is legally binding. Now, a prenuptial agreement is not actually legally binding in the UK, but we have got decided cases that says the court will take it into account. So in order to take it into account, we've got to do three things. First, we've got to exchange information in advance. So that encourages the parties to be transparent about their financial circumstances with each other. The second thing, we've got to have both parties having independent legal advice. And the third element is that this can't be too close to the wedding. It's got to be at least 28 days away from the wedding. So if you've got those elements in place, that means that if this relationship ever goes wrong, then you can pull your prenuptial agreement out of the cupboard and present it to the court and say, we observe the guidelines in the famous case, and the court should agree with you that that is what should be adhered to, rather than the law, which is 50-50. Key thing to remember about prenuptial agreement is children. The presence of children will always change everything. If there are children, or a couple get a prenuptial agreement and then have children later, you have to review it all the time, because the court won't uphold a prenuptial agreement if it's unfair or compromises the children in any way. So for instance, like with a house, they marry, the other person hasn't got any property, but they have children together and the other person is the main carer. The court's not going to uphold an agreement which takes the family home away from those children. Somebody might say, well, why are we going into this relationship if we're going to enter into a contract for it ending? And that's what's problematic. And I think that's why a lot of people haven't done it in the past. But personally, I think it's a sensible thing to do, because it puts the boundaries of the relationship in a very clear perspective right at the outset. And everybody is honest, transparent, and you save lots and lots of money on the marriage breakdown. A big advantage of a prenuptial agreement is the cost it saves. So it's an investment at the time. Might cost, it depends on the circumstances of the case. Simple agreements can be done in 2 or 3 hours. And that is a drop in the ocean compared to what settling a divorce might cost you if you haven't got that document to rely on. It's a time saver, and it's cost effective to do it, but potentially difficult to talk to your spouse to be. If you marry somebody having a house in your name, say for example it's got £100,000 worth of equity in it, the risk is that if that marriage fails, when you split up, you will lose 50% of the equity, or whatever the value of that home is on the date of the separation. So that's what you're trying to avoid with a prenuptial agreement. I don't think it's as taboo as it used to be, because it's kind of a bit more known in the press and things like that. So I think people have conversations honestly about it. And often the person with nothing wants to say, I'm not after your money. So might want to sign the document for that reason. If there is a difference in a couple's financial circumstances, for example, you might have a couple that meet later in life, and one might be a retired police officer. They might have a huge pension, a really significant pension, and these assets are really valuable. That police officer might want to protect that pension. So that couple might want to record that in an agreement. So they're saying to each other, if this relationship does break down, then I won't touch your pension. So everybody moves forward with that peace of mind. It's usually cases where there's a significant difference between parties' financial circumstances.